Hello, viewers of the Focus Forum. We have Michael Owen. This is your debut on the Focus Forum, isn't it?
Debut today.
This is huge. This is huge. Loads of questions to get through. We're going to talk a little bit about the future, but I wanted to talk to you about this season as well. You're a man who loves playing football. This season, it's been 6 substitute appearances at Stoke, just a single goal so far. Has it been a frustrating season for you at Britannia?
Yeah, it's definitely been frustrating. Yeah, I mean, it's awkward when you get to the stage of my career. You want to play at the highest level possible. I was doing that at Manchester United, but not playing regularly, playing probably more regularly than I am now. But so then you think you don't want to drop too far down the ladder, and you go somewhere where you think I'll play a bit more often. But it's not quite happened at Stoke, and so far, you know, I've been fit for the majority of the time. But it's been, as you say, a frustrating season.
And I know you've sort of fully embraced social media, and you're sort of blogging quite regularly as well. You wrote a very interesting one earlier on this season about the time you spent at Liverpool, and maybe you were pushed a little too young, and some of the injuries you have now and some of the concerns that you have with your body now go back to that time at Anfield.
Yeah, I enjoy blogging. It's whenever I get an idea that springs to mind, sometimes contrary to popular belief or something that I've just experienced in my career, I enjoy blogging about it. And yeah, that particular blog was just talking about injuries, talking about what you're exposed to as a youngster, the type of player you are can determine how much you should and shouldn't play. And there's always youngsters coming through, and you're always looking at them thinking, you know, he could probably take a lot of games early, you know, he's built that way, or mentally is he right? And it was just a sort of a reflection on my early years. I was, you know, pretty good pretty soon in my career, and obviously thrust into virtually every game that was available to me, club and country. And you just wonder whether, you know, if I had played a little bit less back then, whether I would have had the big injuries that I had that then sort of, you know, hurt me going on in the rest of my career, really.
And you're also fairly regular in this studio at the moment. You're doing plenty of Match of the Day, Match of the Day 2, and Football Focus as well. We saw you on Saturday as well. Is that something that you enjoy more than you thought you would do when you turned your hand to it? You've done a bit of co-commentary as well. Or, as you well know, everyone watching is an expert, and they love to hammer you whatever you say.
Yeah, I think over the last few years I've really started taking a keen interest in listening to what people say, you know, how they reflect on games, and it's started grabbing my attention over the last few years. So it's been a real eye-opener to actually be this side of the cameras and to talk about it. I've really enjoyed it, yeah. And
we know that racing is a big part of your life as well. Now, most mornings, are you there if you're not training, or do you go straight away after training? And how big a part of your life do you see racing being once you've actually hung up the boots as well?
I think racing it's a passion of mine, but it's not something that I do every day or go to my yard every day or anything like that. It's a big business, so it needs to be run properly, so I'm obviously in tune with what's happening. But I think racing for me is the level I'm at the minute will stay as it is. I don't want to train racehorses or get any more involved. I like owning my stables and, you know, having horses there, other people, meet other people, and, you know, that's probably the level I want to stay. And obviously when I finish my career, I want to do some things in football as opposed to you know, getting even more involved in racing.
And lots of people always ask you about the sort of coaching side of things. We had Sir Alex Ferguson on last week talking about how young he was when he did his coaching badges, and there are a number of young managers around at the minute. Does that attract you, or once you've finished, do you want to be like a full-time pundit working for the BBC and you know, others and things like that?
It's an interesting one, really. I think the dynamics now and of football going into coaching is different. It's changed. I think it was an automatic thing back then. With all due respect, players now are earning a lot more money than they did.
It's much harder to attract players.
It's much harder. They don't need to necessarily do it. Also, you look at it, it's not easy to get your badges. I've done my first 3. I've still got my A and my pro licence to go. And it's taken me a few years. It's a long process, and it's not easy. You know, do you want to go through that process and then get a job, and after a month or so,
Get sacked,
have a couple of bad results, and everyone, is quick to criticise. It's that sort of balancing act, I think, nowadays. It's you see all these managers getting sacked left, right, and centre, and it's I think it puts a lot of young managers off.
You have worked for some pretty big managers over the years. Do you have one in particular that you've learnt the most from? Not necessarily the best manager you've played for, but the one that you've thought, oh, that's a great idea. If I was ever in a job, I'd do it that way.
Well, it depends what way you. In terms of football, I think in your early years you learn your most. So, Gerard Houllier was a fantastic manager. I wouldn't say I learned football-wise, but I learned off him, the way to run a club, the way to, treat players, the way to organise men. And likewise, towards the end of my career, you have a different perspective on life, and seeing what Alex Ferguson does is just, a dream come true. How you run a massive organisation like that, keep so many top players happy, and, work with the youth team like he does. You're always looking or learning different things. From a football point of view, I thought Glenn Hoddle was tactically one of the best managers I've played
so many
with.
players who played in that England side in the 1998 World Cup say that it's a pity that he left, because he could have taken England on to much better things. They say, and tactically that's exactly what so many of that team say, that he was better than the best in that regard than all the England managers they've worked under.
Yeah, I learned an awful lot about him, and I was probably a sponge at the time. I was 18, and any information was great for me. So I was learning so quick at that time. So I'd have to say that I learned an awful lot from him. As I say, when you go through your career and you're sometimes looking for different things. How did that manager motivate me, and how did he organise this, and the players that aren't playing, is he good with them, and keeping morale up, and different. There's lots of different things you look for in a manager, and there's lots of different sort of ways you look at them as you're going throughout your career.
Final one, we've asked you about managers. What about players? Who have you learnt the most from playing alongside or playing against? And you played with some big names over the years.
Yeah, not necessarily the best players are the ones that know a lot about football. For one example, or I think someone like Jamie Carragher has been a real student of the game. If you put him in any position, I think he'd be able to do it. If you put me at centre half or right back, I probably would be 5 yards out of position all the time. But he's got a real understanding, a real tactical brain. People like Gary Neville would have been similar. Steven Gerrard was just. Sometimes you play with someone and you're just on their wavelength, and it's just an eye contact, and you know exactly what he's thinking and what you're going to do, and there's a chemistry there. So I'd say sort of Steven Gerrard in terms of knowing what he's, as I say, a bit of a chemistry, and in terms of knowing about the game and teaching you about the game, then the likes of Neville and Carragher.
Brilliant. Thank you for your insight, as ever. Hopefully we'll have you on again. That's Michael Owen. Don't forget, Football Focus returns on Saturday at 12:15 on BBC One once again. Thank you for watching our Focus Forum, and from me and Michael, we'll see you soon.